I should start? Okay. Once upon a time, in a faraway country, there lived a very kind king. Every summer, he gave a magnificent fair, free to all the children. There were tents with banners and flags, dancers, monkeys, clowns, and many surprises. The royal pianist will play the music for this story, and he will make the piano sound like trumpets and drums and all the other instruments of the orchestra. If you listen carefully, you will hear in the music all the things that happen in the story. The country fair always begins with a country dance. Everyone is happy that the fair has begun. Cats dance with dogs. Chickens dance with foxes. Girls dance with boys. They dance so fast that they get tired and they slow down at the end. Listen. Two children named Paul and Mary are the main characters in this story. They are brother and sister. They go to see the puppets, but they find out that the puppets have been dancing too and need to take a nap. All the kids have to be very quiet because a penguin will play on her violin a soft lullaby. That's the kind of music you play to help someone fall asleep. The puppets don't sleep very long. They hear the sound of trumpets and trombones. The band is playing a fanfare, a kind of music that is played when something very important is about to happen. It announces the procession of the king and queen and the royal household into the fairgrounds. Once the royal family is seated, a little dog runs onto the stage and starts nipping at the heels of the clown. The clown is angry at the little dog for his impertinence and tries to catch him, but the dog is too quick. He even teases the clown, daring him to try again. Ta-dam, ta-dam, you'll hear that. At the end, just when the clown thinks he has caught him, the little dog runs away faster than ever. Got away. Paul and Mary love to sing. Even the Queen has heard about their beautiful voices and asks them to sing this song. The two princesses, Naomi and Delia, accompany them on their guitars. It's really played by the piano, but you can just imagine the guitars, okay? The two children go back to the puppets to see them perform the May dance. But these are very strange puppets. Instead of being operated by strings from above, each puppet has a wind-up key, so they move like a robot or a clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Princesses have a little brother, Prince Johnny, who is terribly jealous that his sisters got to play the song. He insists on playing a piece on his trumpet. Unfortunately, he only knows how to play one note, E. So the royal composer wrote a special piece for Johnny with just that one note played on every single beat. Suddenly, a troop of gypsy dancers runs out of a tent to perform their famous rondo. Now, a rondo is a piece where one main tune keeps coming around again. That's why they call it a rondo. Finally, as the music gets louder, the dancers whirl faster and faster, wilder and wilder, until they run out of breath and they all fall down. Did you ever notice that when you look in the mirror, everything is backwards? You raise your right hand, and the kid in the mirror rests his left hand. In the fun house at the fair, there are humongous mirrors that also make everything look upside down. Here's what it would sound like if every tune you played were played back in a mirror. If you go up, it goes down. If you go down, it goes up. Paul and Mary are about to go hear the organ grinder. That's someone who plays an organ that looks like a big music box on wheels. When you turn the crank, it will play a song. The organ grinder has a trained monkey who carries a cup asking the listeners for coins. Now, Mary has a friend, Flora, and she wants to see the organ grinder too, but her father won't let her go. This next song is a dialogue, a conversation between Flora and her father. You might even call it an argument. Flora, in a high voice, loudly begs to her dad, who in a lower voice quietly tells her she can't go. But Clara keeps on begging louder and louder. Finally, her father says, well, if you're careful, you may go. You can hear him say this at the end, very slowly. When the children come to the organ grinder, he is drinking from an almost empty bottle of wine, and he's wobbly on his feet. He gives the cup to the monkey and begins to crank the organ handle. But I'm very sorry to tell you that he is in no condition to play the music correctly. He's drunk. Instead of keeping a regular beat, 1, 2, 1, 2, he mixes it all up, and so it sounds more like 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2. I think he's trying to play a piece called The Happy Farmer. You know that? He's trying, but he's drunk. So here is how I think is what it sounds like when The Happy Farmer is played by the happy drunken organ grinder. The choir director from Paul and Mary's school is horrified by the terrible noise the organ grinder is making and takes all the children away as quickly as she can. Now we are going to hear some amazing music, she says, and she takes the children into a big outdoor theater. On stage are dozens of children, all of them holding bells of different shapes and different sizes, and each bell has a different note. So listen to how they ring as each child shakes his own bell at exactly the right time. Paul and Mary go next to the fairy tale tent. It's really a theater where two famous Shakespearean actresses named Sophia and Lucinda act out the stories with their fellow actors. When the children arrive, they see on stage the glittering ballroom of a beautiful palace. It is the scene in Cinderella where the prince invites all the girls in the land to a dance so that he can choose one of them to be his wife. Now, it's a very proper and old-fashioned dance, a classical dance, not like these wild, raucous dances today. It's a classical dance. But as you probably know, poor Cinderella was not allowed to go to the dance. Her wicked stepsisters made her stay home in her rags and clean the cinders out of the fireplace. She dreams, though, of dancing with the prince, but she knows that that could never happen. And it makes her very unhappy. And so she sings this adagietto, a song that is slow and sad. I hope none of you children will cry, even if I do. Cheer up, kids. You probably know already that Cinderella does get to go to the dance after all, and ends up marrying the prince. Our last piece is a march. At the end of the fair, the king and queen and all the royal family march back to the palace over a long red carpet. And all the happy children march home, talking about the wonderful things they saw at the country fair. The end.
Bravo!
What do you think of this orchestra?
Bravo!
Great.
Thank you, Kirk. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. You know, guys, it's not every day that you get to hear a composer read. It's very special indeed. Thank you again, Kirk. Thank you. Well, San Francisco Boys Chorus, we have some great second, third, fourth graders here, and we're going to have Paddington. So, let me ask you a couple questions. Paddington Bear. Who knows the story of Paddington Bear? Anybody? Yes. All right, yes. All right. So, tell me, what is Paddington Bear's favorite food? Yeah, Zach. Honey. This is a very special bear. Yes. Marmalade. How many of you like marmalade? Okay, we have a couple. Sometimes marmalade can be a little bit different. Well, we're going to talk about Paddington, and all of you know, where is Paddington from? Where is he from? Where? He's from Peru, darkest Peru. And where does he go? Where does he go? He emigrates. He goes someplace. London. He goes to London. So this story, the music is by a gentleman by the name of Herbert Chappell, and he wrote this story about what Paddington does after he gets to London and he meets Mr. Gruber. He goes to a concert and creates all kinds of havoc. Real havoc. I mean, it's a real mess. So, here is our story of Paddington Bear. Mr. and Mrs. Brown first met Paddington on a railway platform. In fact, that was how he came to have such an unusual name for a bear, because Paddington was the name of a station. Mr. Brown saw him first, a small, furry object sitting on an old suitcase behind a pile of mailbags near the lost property office. The bear was wearing a funny kind of hat, and on the side of the suitcase, in large white letters, were the words, "Wanted on voyage." A label around the bear's neck said, quite simply, "Please look after this bear. Thank you." "You're a very small bear," said Mrs. Brown. The bear puffed out his chest. "I'm a very rare sort of bear," he replied. "There aren't many of us left where I come from." "And where is that?" asked Mrs. Brown. "Darkest Peru," he said importantly, and he told them all about Peru, a country far away on the other side of the world, with high mountains and deep valleys, full of strange animals and birds with unusual cries. "When I was in Peru, I used to live with my Aunt Lucy," said the bear. "But she had to go into a home for retired bears in Lima, so I emigrated. I came all the way by sea in a large ship. I was a stowaway. I hid in the ship's lifeboat and ate marmalade. Bears like marmalade." "What are you going to do now?" asked Mrs. Brown. The bear looked around. "I don't know," he said sadly. "Paddington Station isn't a bit like darkest Peru. It's so crowded, and everyone seems in such a hurry." Mrs. Brown to her husband. "I've an idea. We found him on Paddington Station, so that's what we will call him. Paddington." "Paddington," repeated the bear. Paddington. I like that. It sounds very important." "Good. That's settled then," said Mrs. Brown. "Home you come with us, Paddington." And off they went to find a taxi. The taxi driver looked at Paddington. "Bears is $9 extra," he said gruffly. "Sticky bears, $12. Paddington gave the man a hard stare back. "Number 32, Windsor Gardens," said Mr. Brown hastily. "And hurry!" "I expect you've had lots of adventures," said Mrs. Brown, "coming all that way from Peru." "Oh, I have," said Paddington. "Bears are good at having adventures." And the boat called in lots of places on the way. In the West Indies, it was carnival time. And then in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there was a dreadful storm. When I got to Africa, I saw a snake charmer. And in Spain, the people never stopped stamping their feet. Oh, from Peru to the Portobello Road. Really, it was quite a journey. It took Paddington no time at all to settle down with the Browns, and he soon became one of the family. Mr. and Mrs. Brown had 2 children, Jonathan and Judy, and there was someone called Mrs. Bird who looked after them all. Number 32 Windsor Gardens was near the Portobello Road, and most days Paddington visited the market to get his morning supply of buns from the baker, where he had a standing order. While he was at the market, Paddington always did the shopping for the rest of the household, and he soon became a popular figure among the traders. "There's no doubt about it," said Mrs. Bird. "That bear has an eye for a bargain." Paddington made lots of new friends. But best of all was Mr. Gruber. Mr. Gruber kept an antique shop in the Portobello Road. It was full to overflowing with old copper pots and pans, brass ornaments, furniture of every shape and size. To enter it was like going into another world. There was even a musical box that played tunes. And wherever you looked, there were clocks. There were clocks of all shapes and sizes, ticking and chiming away. There was almost nothing that Mr. Gruber did not have in his shop. There was almost nothing that Mr. Gruber did not know about either. Paddington thought Mr. Gruber was the wisest person he had ever met. Most mornings they had their elevenses together, and Mr. Gruber kept Paddington on the edge of his sofa by telling him all about his early life in Hungary. It was what was known as a cafe society, said Mr. Gruber. Oh, those were the days. People ate buns and drank cocoa far into the night. And there was music and dancing. Oh, such music. Wait, I will show you. Mr. Gruber took a record out of a cardboard box, placed it on an old gramophone, and he showed Paddington how to do a Hungarian dance. As the music came to an end, Paddington licked his lips and helped himself to some more cocoa. I think I would have liked living in a cafe society, Mr. Gruber, he said. I don't think I've ever had buns far into the night before, especially to music. They did not have much music where I come from." "No music?" said Mr. Gruber. "But life is nothing without the music. Did they ever have any concerts in the home for the retired bears?" "Never," said Paddington firmly. "Bears aren't very good at music. It's a bit difficult with paws." Mr. Gruber jumped to his feet. "In that case, I shall take you all to a concert this very afternoon. I'll shut my shutters and close the shop, and we will all go to the Royal Albert Hall." Paddington wasn't quite sure exactly what a concert was, but he thought the Royal Albert Hall sounded very grand indeed, and he hurried home to Windsor Gardens as fast as his little legs would carry him in order to tell the others the good news. When they arrived at the Royal Albert Hall, Paddington's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Oh, it's a very large building," he said. As they went inside and Mr. Gruber led them to their seats, Paddington saw that up on the concert platform there was an enormous orchestra. There were so many musicians. He gave up trying to count them. "I can see why they need such a big building," he exclaimed. The trumpets were trumpeting. The flutes were fluting. The big bass drum was booming. And the violins and cellos were making a terrible noise. Paddington felt very relieved when Judy explained it was only the orchestra tuning up. "Well, I think it would be better if they tuned down," he announced in a loud voice. Judy hastily handed him a program. "That shows what they're going to play," she said. "There's a short piece to start with, then the surprise symphony by Haydn, followed by Schubert's unfinished symphony." "What?" exclaimed Paddington. But Mr. Gruber has paid for our seats. Do you mean to say Schubert hasn't even finished his symphony?" Mr. Gruber coughed. "I don't think he will ever now, Mr. Brown. Schubert died in 1828. But Paddington was not listening. He was much too upset. As the conductor turned to the orchestra and the concert began, He gave the back of the man's head a very hard stare indeed. Paddington was a bear with a strong sense of right and wrong, and as Mr. Gruber and the others closed their eyes in order to listen to the music, he rose to his feet and crept quietly away. "Excuse me," said Paddington, raising his hat to the lady behind the refreshment counter. "I'm looking for Mr. Schubert." "Mr. Schubert?" repeated the lady. "I don't know anyone of that name, dear. What does he look like?" "I don't know," said Paddington, "but he wrote a symphony, and he hasn't finished it yet." "That's typical of things today. Nobody finishes anything. Tell you what, why don't you go backstage and wait by the artist's entrance? You'll be bound to catch the orchestra when they come off. They will be able to help. There's a door just along the corridor," she added helpfully. "It leads straight to the dressing rooms. You can't miss it." Paddington thanked the lady for all her help and hurried on his way. But he found the Albert Hall was a very complicated building, and in no time at all he was lost in a maze of corridors, one of which led to a door marked "Strictly Private." The door opened easily enough, but to his horror, it closed behind him with an ominous click. Try as he might, he could not open it again. It was at that moment, the orchestra started to play. They started to play Haydn's Surprise Symphony. Paddington tried, shouting for help, at first in a quiet voice so as not to disturb the music, and then much louder, "Help! Help!" But nobody could possibly hear him. For all the good it did, he might as well have saved his breath. It was Judy who noticed the knocking first. It was in the middle of the surprise symphony. Bang! 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 The conductor lowered his arms and tried again. Bang! 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 The noise seemed to be coming from somewhere quite close at hand. It was all very mysterious. Bang! 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 And then it happened. Bang! 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 Suddenly there was a loud splintering noise. To everyone's astonishment, the conductor seemed to rise several inches into the air. Mr. Gruber, Jonathan, and Judy watched the conductor's podium in alarm. First, a broom handle came into view. Then, a few seconds later, the familiar-looking hat, a red hat. The hat was followed by some equally familiar-looking whiskers. "Excuse me," said Paddington, raising his hat politely. "I am looking for Mr. Schubert." But his voice was drowned in a wave of applause. The whole audience rose to its feet, and there were cries of "Bravo! Bravo!" from all around. "No wonder they call it the Surprise Symphony," said a man next to Mr. Gruber. "What will they think of next? Encore! Encore! The conductor looked at the audience and then at Paddington. Perhaps, he said, you can suggest something as an encore? Paddington considered the matter for a moment. Oh, I think I would much sooner have something that's been finished, he said. Then Paddington had one of his ideas. If you like, I'll show you how to conduct my very own tune. That is, he added hastily, if you don't mind. After you, said the conductor. And with that, he handed his baton to Paddington and stood back as the entire Royal Albert Hall resounded to the music of Paddington Bear. There can't be many bears who've had their own music played at a concert, said Judy later that afternoon as they drove back home. One way or another, it's been a very musical day, said Mr. Gruber. He turned to Paddington. Did you enjoy the concert, Mr. Brown? I did, Mr. Gruber, said a sleepy voice. Thank you very much for taking me. Paddington had just discovered that if he closed his eyes, he could still hear the music. And if he closed them very tightly indeed, it was just like being back in the Royal Albert Hall again. Oh, I think, he announced to the world in general as he dropped off to sleep, I might be a conductor when I grow up. please, one more round of applause for our amazing pianist, Kevin Navarro. Please, Kevin. Bravo. These concerts would not happen without Kevin, I can tell you right now. He can play anything, see anything, and make it happen in a matter of minutes. Thank you, Kevin. It's amazing. And to our crew over here, to our Paddington crew, please stand up and take a bow. Zachary, Gabriella, Lucia, Tadeo, and Catherine. Take a bow. I want to thank you all for coming. It's rather quite exciting. So if you are watching on the live stream, you can actually hear some applause. So there's very simple baby steps happening here. We're slowly coming back. And this is the first concert where we've actually had an audience, a small audience, but a very powerful audience. So it's very exciting for us. There are many people to thank here. First of all of you wonderful viewers who have tuned in tonight. But to all the folks who made this concert happen, Todd Jolly from the San Francisco Boys Chorus. Thank you, Todd. To our amazing tech crew. This would not happen without Pat Stacy. You probably will not see him come out, but a round of applause for Pat Stacy. For our devoted, very devoted event coordinator and stagehand, Jim Reynolds. I don't know if Jim's going to come out. To all of you parents who brought your children here this evening, thank you. So little by little, we're going to be having an audience. I just want to let you all know that on behalf of Father Bonfilio and our parish family, we're delighted you are here, and we do hope you come back for Mass. Check out our website with our Mass schedule and all the many activities that are beginning to populate the calendars, as they say. In the meantime, we will not have any concerts for the next few weeks. Our spring-summer series is coming to an end, but I wanted to give you a heads up on July 1st. Mark Wingus will be doing an organ concert with devotionals, so mark your calendars for July 1st. And then on July 15th, another special concert. Hope Riggs will be doing an anthology of African American composers. So again, another beautiful concert of a tremendous vocal artist. Again, thank you all for being here. It's so delightful to see folks here in the sanctuary applauding. It's so wonderful to hear these voices. Thank you all very much, and please do come back. Good night.